Papa Roach headlined Wembley Arena in London for the first time ever as they celebrated 25 years since their incredible album Infest came out. It's part of a larger tour across the EU and the UK, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It was a really fucking good gig. But before I get into Papa Roach, let's talk about the support act in Wage War. Now, I've enjoyed a couple songs by Wage War over the past year or so that I've been aware of them, and I have enjoyed them. I was looking forward to seeing them live. I'd never seen them live before. They did not seem daunted by the size of the event and that stage and that crowd, which is a good thing, and they were very polished. Now, that can be good, that can be bad, kind of depends on your point of view, and I'll try and explain mine in a moment, but they did a very professional set from start to finish. The sound was overall excellent. You could hear every single instrumentation throughout all of that. They built in a good journey throughout their songs. I think the pacing of their songs throughout their set was pretty excellent. And they got a couple of absolute bangers. I was looking forward to seeing live, like Manic. They closed on, that was fantastic. And Magnetic was also a great song to see what they do with that live. And as I said, they did a good job. It sounded really good. And part of the problem in my head is that it sounded so good because of the amount of autotune that they used live. There's definitely using live autotune. Now, it's okay to use live autotune if you want, especially if that is the sound you're going for. And you know what? In listening to their songs, their choruses don't have a subtle amount of autotune. There's quite a lot in there. So actually, they were recreating live a pretty accurate representation of what you hear on their records, which is entirely fine. I think, for me, what's tricky about that is, for me personally, I'm trying to really be kind here, because it's a choice you can make, and I'm not mad at it, and most people in the audience would not have clocked that the amount of autotune that was on there, for example. But I would love the more autotune you put on something, the less of the human input you get. And me personally, when I go to see a live gig, I want to experience the live people making the music. Otherwise, in my view, you might as well be at home and just cranking your stereo up to 11. Like, it's kind of the same thing. If you're really reproducing as exactly as possible live what you have on the record, what is the draw to see it live? Other than to have the moment of, hey, it's cool, it's the actual people who wrote these songs and recorded them are on stage. That's cool. And in between the songs, live moments where the lead singer is chatting to the crowd and engaging and interacting in that way. But otherwise, I don't really know why you'd go to see a band live if it's going to be mostly polished with autotune on the vocals, because the vocals are really the most visceral example of what is live. Because guitars, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly when you're looking, especially in an arena show, when they're strumming, what their fingers are doing, to hearing exactly what it is. You know, you have to kind of take them on faith that this is not a backing track in some ways. But vocals are hard to disguise live if they're not real. And they were singing 100%, but the autotune layer on top meant I couldn't really hear as much of the raw input, and it kind of didn't feel viscerally live somehow. And just, that's a personal preference, I think. I think it's easier to kind of tune in and out of it if it doesn't feel that live. And this is a concept that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment. I had a great chat with Misha from Periphery. That interview will be online at some point on the channel about this. And he's saying, you know, if you've got a bunch of people who paid a lot of money on these tickets to see a live show, who cares if you're using click and you're using tuning, whatever it is, as long as it is a good show. And I was watching Wage War and I thought, this is a good show. Like, it's not boring. They're delivering it with a bit of gravitas and energy to it. But I don't know if it is enough that the show is good for me personally. But this is a preference thing. I really enjoy the live element of a band. I don't mind a little bit of finesse. When there's a touch of auto-tune, like really just to kind of fine-tune stuff. I'm not going to probably notice, I'm not going to be that mad at it. It's just the amount of it was so strong that it didn't really sound human enough for me to get a lot of enjoyment out of that. which is a shame. But, most of the crowd seem to enjoy it. And that's a choice they've obviously made consciously to do. And it's fine. But what's interesting is, by contrast, Papa Roach, later on, if there was any autotune on the vocals, it was so tiny as to not be perceptible. And he sang every bit with loud forcefulness. And there wasn't like a backing track that he's mirroring his voice along with. They were actual live vocals. And it made it all the more impressive. Now, I don't know whether that's because they came about at a time where live autotune was not a thing. And what that means is you have to just get better and better and better at perfecting your instrument, your voice, so that you can be as good as possible live. And because of those decades of experience that way, now we can do it live, and it's amazing. And I fucking love and respect that. I thought it was fantastic. Now, in the lead up to the Papa Roach gig, I had done a deep dive of their Infest album to revisit that masterpiece and kind of dissect it for what it was and understand what are the key elements that make that as good as it is. I'll put a link in the description and up here for you to check out that video if you're interested in finding out more about the Infest album and the breakdown of that whole thing. But because of that, I was so excited to see what I thought would be all of those songs live in full from start to finish. But I was wrong about that. Thankfully, I realized that a couple days before the gig. I saw a set list from another gig, and they're playing songs off of Infest, not all of them, and they're peppering them in between other hit songs from over the years, which is fair enough. I guess that's the choice I want to make. I was really hoping to hear that album in full. But if you look at the poster, they never promised the full album. It just said, celebrating 25 years of Infest, and a big caption saying, we're coming to Infest. So I unfortunately interpreted that when I was buying the tickets as, oh my God, it's going to be the full Infest album. It wasn't. But that's fine, because they have great songs that are not on Infest, and they played fucking all of them. They played for, I think it was just over 2 hours, which is so impressive, especially if you're doing live vocals the whole time, and the full force of those. And there's a lot of rap elements, so there's a lot of words to remember and to deliver. And even the drummer, by the end of the set, it's like he's got good stamina to do 2 hours of this. Pretty impactful rock drums. And it was fucking awesome. They opened with their latest song, which is quite a cool move, even if it kills me. And that's so good live. That absolutely rocked. And they got the energy up to the ceiling from the very start. Now, the journey through the songs, it wasn't completely in order of the album as expected, because on the album, I think the second track is Last Resort. They're not going to play Last Resort second. This live show, right? They ended up finishing with that one. But they did have a good set list of songs for the pacing of a 2-hour show. They came out with absolute hitters to begin with. And then in the middle, they had, more gentle moments. There was a moment halfway through the set where there was a VT where Jacoby Shaddix was talking about the importance of awareness about suicide and helping each other and how to reach out and get help anywhere in the world that you are. So that was a wonderful, touching moment. Obviously, a lot of their lyrics tie into that sort of theme. And there was a dedication to Chester Bennington at one point as well. They even had one of their songs feature a bit of vocals from In the End, which was a really cool moment when that happened. And then they did Leave a Light On, and everyone's in the audience with the lights of their phones. That was a beautiful view to see, especially at Wembley Arena, which is a massive, massive crowd. That was fucking so cool and wonderful to have that reflective moment on. It's great to enjoy some new metal, rock moments, but also have a think about how that makes you feel about life and other bits and pieces. And who are you here with? And that's pretty cool. They had a good amount of pyro scattered throughout their songs as well. There were a few flames going off, which is always kind of cool and fun to see and enjoy. And even, I was quite far away, right? I was up in the Gods seats at the side at Wembley Arena, and you could feel the heat from there. So God knows what it was like on stage for the folks in the band. After they'd played all of the main songs within the set list, and they just had one song to go, really, which was Last Resort, they had this very cool moment where they were reflecting on 25 years as a band and what was happening around that time, 25 years ago, what other bands were making exceptional music. And they ended up playing snippets of Blind by Korn. They did Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. There was Chop Suey by System of a Down and My Own Summer by Deftones. Huge, iconic moments in the kind of metal and new metal world. And it's quite a swing to show that we can play all these big hit songs you love, these moments from bands that are not us, And still, it won't be a disappointment when we play ours because of how iconic that one is as well. And as they rip into Last Resort, obviously, the whole place went off. That song is just so good. And it was a joy to be able to see live some of those deeper cuts on Infest and watching the musicians live on stage playing all those bits and pieces, him delivering all the rap vocals that he did, including "My name's Kobe Dick, Mr. Dick, if you're nasty," and he didn't even wink with it. He just delivered that lyric as it was. That was cool. It was a very reminiscent show. They did a phenomenal job with this modern day high production level of LED screens, and the sound was exceptional, and it was fucking live and amazing. Absolutely amazing. Kobe is a wonderful frontman, very casual but energetic, connective. He makes you feel like he's talking to each one of you that's in the audience. It's quite a skill to do. And it felt, personal and yet professional in a really great balance. Very hard to achieve, but really impressive to see. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to see Papa Roach live, you will not be disappointed. They are so impressive. And there'll be so many songs you won't realize probably that you already know until they play them. Like, oh, I remember this one from like 20 years ago. It was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, they absolutely nailed it. And I would not be surprised if their next gig is the O2 Arena, because I have a feeling that 99% of the audience that was there for Wembley Arena would come back to see them again. That's how good they were live, how satisfying the setlist was. And it was a fantastic event. Really amazing. 25 years they've been going, and they're probably better now, I think, than they've ever been. I've seen them a few times over the years, and I've always enjoyed it, but god damn, that was a really good gig.